this to me is astounding. If you haven't seen it, and I learned of it by reading Stefan Bondi's story in the news today. You know that Kyrie Irving can play games in Brooklyn?
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
So, now, he's not allowed to, but if he does, the Nets get fined by the city of New York. Now, I was thinking when I saw they get fined that it would be millions of dollars, right? Here's the fines, everybody. The first time he plays, it's a warning. They don't get fined. The second time he plays, it's $1,000. The third time he plays, it's $2,000. The fourth time he plays, it's $5,000. The fifth time to infinity, it's $5,000. Are the Nets out of their mind? If you do the calculations, what do they have? 20-something games left at home? What's it, $80,000? What is Joe Tsai thinking? You've already sold your soul because you're having him play anyway on the road. So instead of having this jumbled mess with no continuity whatsoever, you're already paying this guy over $30 million. You're in for a tax of millions and millions and millions of dollars because you're over the salary tax threshold. And you're not going to pay $80,000 to have this guy play at Barclays Center? Peter, explain this to me. How can this be that this is where they're drawing the line?
It has to be that they just didn't do the due diligence. Which
they had to know.
You tell me which is more unacceptable. Or do they think that because they believe in the rule, they don't want to violate it and pay the fine?
But if they believe in the rule, right? Well, most other states don't have the rule. That's why he's allowed to play on the road, other than in L.A. and in Toronto. So, and that's a country, not a state, Toronto, Canada. But it doesn't make sense. You've already breached your initial belief that, you know what, if he doesn't get the vaccination, he doesn't play. Well, he is playing, and you're doing that out of desperation. Well, now, to complete the championship puzzle, don't you think it's worth $80,000? You've sold your soul already, you know what I mean? You've already crossed that hill, so now go all in.
Something's not right. So there's got to be a piece to the puzzle that's missing, Michael, because, as you said, it's $80,000.
Somebody who is very close to the situation, that's the way I will describe this person, just texted me and said, that is the absolute truth. If they pay the $80,000, he plays at home.
But something else has to be at play here, because why wouldn't Kyrie or KD or anybody else on the Brooklyn Nets not be apoplectic? The Nets aren't going to pick up the fine.
I don't get it.
Or Kyrie just pay it himself. Like, I don't understand how $80,000 has led to him being asked to walk away from the team, then have to come back, and then not play on the road. All the things that they've had to go through, all the hoops they've had to go through for $80,000. Why isn't Kyrie speaking out? Why isn't KD like ripping his own organization? Why isn't KD just paying it himself? Like, if it's $80,000, Michael, there's got to be something else to it. Was some promise made? Did they feel like they'd be, I don't know, violating some sort of a trust? Like did the city of New York go to the Nets and say, listen, I know it's only $80,000, but please don't do this, because then everything else will crumble. If you do it, then everybody else will do it, and we'll have madness. So I don't know. I can't imagine that it would take, A, this long for us to find this out, and B, that somebody wouldn't have just volunteered and said, I'll pay the $80,000, let him play. I would think Kyrie would be mad not at the city, not at the NBA, but mad at the Nets for not paying it.
Well, here's another side thing. Kyrie should be red hot for a number of reasons. If the Nets pay $80,000 for him to play the rest of the way, he gets his money. He's losing $17 million. So by them not paying this minuscule amount of money, they get to save the $17 million that they would pay him for playing home games. But I thought the end game was to win championships. So this is what Blanderson Hooper tweeted to me. How can you advocate for this? It's not fair to regular people who follow the rules. Well, you can actually make the argument, what do these rules mean? Is everybody in that building vaccinated? Are they all checked? Number one. Number two, you're paying a fine. You're deciding to pay a penalty. And they lost their moral high ground when they let the guy play on the road when they said they weren't going to. So if they never let him play on the road and they just didn't want him back unless he got vaccinated, I wouldn't be advocating for this. But he's around the players on the road. He's around LaMarcus Aldridge, who has a heart problem. So it's not a point of keeping away from the players because he's around them on the road anyway. So what are you doing? Peter, does anything make sense to you other than that they're trying to be on their high horse, that they believe in the rule but not on the road?
Have you completely ruled out there's any chance that when they dug all this up, it was somehow a loophole they didn't see?
Boy, that would make them look inept.
Well, what here doesn't make them look inept? Well, I guess we'll find out if they change their mind right now. If we find out they're going to do this, then maybe they did just find out.
There had to be some sort of a conversation. I don't know. They must have talked to the city and this. It can't be this. There has to be a piece of information that's missing.
Somebody in the basketball world just texted me, said it may be that there's an NBA order that says, quote, you have to follow local mandates, but I'm not sure. And LA and Boston have mandate exemptions for local athletes. So they can play. They have that same rule, but their athletes locally could play. And in New York, visiting athletes that are unvaccinated could play, but not the local guy. If I'm Kyrie, I'm telling you, there's a lawsuit here too.
Well,
especially if he walks into the Nets tomorrow and goes, I'll pay the fines. I want to play.
Well, wouldn't he have? But that conversation would have been had at the beginning. I can't imagine. So Kyrie pays. I think somebody on Twitter did the calculate. It's like $88,000 for him to be able to get all the money that he's missing out on. It'd be worth it to pay the $88,000 to get the money he's losing out on. So, what? Not only would it be negligence on the Nets' part, but on Kyrie's part. How did they both miss it? I can't imagine both of them whiffed. So there must be something where that's the fine, but whether it's the NBA or whether it's the city of New York had like a reverse exemption. Like, you can't, I'm sorry, because of your situation, your stature, and how much money you guys make, you can't pay a fine. You're not allowed. It doesn't make any sense. This makes zero sense.
Another guy I know just texted me and said, isn't it as simple as wanting to respect the rules of your city? But absolute rules are absolutely ridiculous. So here's my point. As long as visiting athletes could play, there is not a total mandate that you're not allowed to play if you don't have a vaccine. So if you want to pay for that right to play, then pay for the right to play. Listen, I don't approve of Kyrie not being vaccinated. It's his choice. I approve of him having the choice. I would rather he be vaccinated because it tells you he's not all in team-wise, but maybe he thinks there's a health problem. So I back off on that. I don't want to argue that point. But since visiting players that are unvaccinated could come into Barclays Center and MSG and play, then if I'm the Nets, the ethical ground has been erased, so I would pay the fine and let the guy play and try to win a championship.
But that would kind of explain maybe the Nets feel like as part of the community here, we're trying to help. We're very high profile. We want to listen to the city mandate. We do not want to violate that because we don't want bedlam. We understand the responsibility of our profile, and we want to honor the mandate. But how would that explain Kyrie? Look at all the money that he's missing out on. Kyrie can step up and say, I'll pay the $88,000 and let me play.
Yeah, and by the way, 88 is for the whole season, so it's practically nothing now. So if he pays the fines, it could just be a mathematical equation for him. Let's say I'll pay $50,000 and I'll get my $17 million. That's a pretty good investment.
Now, I don't know why they keep that a secret. So if that's the case from the Nets standpoint, why wouldn't the Nets just say, yeah, we could pay the fine, but we're not going to because we want to honor the mandate? But Kyrie has not said anything. Why would Kyrie want to honor the mandate? He's the one that's losing out on all the money. Forget about the games that are being lost. I mean, he's losing money. So for an $88,000 investment, $88,000 investment, he'd be able to get all this other money back. He never said a peep.
The only thing that doesn't look good is if the Nets are doing this to save the $17 million. Because, again, aren't they all in on winning championships? Once they broke that seal and let them play it on the road, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? This is now the holy ground that you will not desecrate. This is it.
Well, I'll tell you what, Michael. All right, it's out there. And if they want to honor it. But now you get to the playoffs, and now you're talking about a minuscule amount of money, right?
Yeah.
You talk about he'd be able to play in game 1, you get the warning, $1,000 in game 2, $2,000 for the third home game, and for the fourth home game, which could potentially be a game 7. You know what? You pay the $5,000. Like, I would have to think come playoff time they would then have to pay it, because now you're talking about trying to win a championship. Like, how would you explain that to your fan base then?
I don't know how you explain it now.
It can't be about the money. All right, the Nets wanting to honor the mandate, I get it. But you're asking Kyrie to just not say a peep either? When you know he doesn't want to lose on all that money.
TBD tweets, perhaps the city told the professional teams that if they willfully try to skirt the rules, they could raise the fine or introduce some other penalty. They're not skirting the rules. They'd be playing by the rules. All right, we'll pay the fine. Those are the rules.
I know, but it is weird because it is the rules. But does someone with, like, let's just have fun here, perfect integrity intentionally break a rule and just pay the fine?
I would agree with you, Peter, but didn't the perfect integrity go out the window when you let him start? You desperately said, okay, play on the road?
No, well, they're still not breaking any rules. They're fully
But they're breaking their covenant where they would not let anybody play.
But we're all just projecting what our idea is.
Right.
And what I'm saying is maybe this covenant they had is not real, but maybe following the rules is real. And so,
but if, let's say you park at a meter and you don't pay for the meter, and then you pay the $50 ticket, well, then you're following the rules. If you don't pay the ticket, you're not following the rules. So the rules are you have to be vaccinated, and if you're not, then this is what you have to pay. You're following the rules.
Yeah, but this is where...
I know what you're saying, Peter, but I think it's kind of a very nebulous line.
It could be viewed as unhonorable, or, you know...
Right. Like if you're a filthy rich person, Peter, and just feel like, I'm just going to park on the street. Give me the tickets. I don't care. I'll pay the fines. I'll take the car out of the impound lot. I'm not putting my car in a lot. I'm going to drive and park right in front of the building every single time. That you'd be a bad guy. Okay, you'd be looked upon as a bad guy that's kind of taking advantage of their situation. So maybe the Nets just don't want to be looked upon as that guy taking advantage of the situation. But what I just want to know is, why are we just finding out about this now? And why is Kyrie so silent about it? Because that might explain why the Nets are doing it, Peter. But boy, that's asking a lot for Kyrie to do it. That's a lot of money to lose. Mm-hmm. So would that make Kyrie a bad guy if he signed a check to the city for $88,000 and then was about to go about his business? Would that make him a bad guy? Maybe it would. I don't know. Everybody thinks he's a bad guy anyway.
Andrew, can you? I don't know if anybody from the Nets will come on, but can you see if they have a statement on why this hasn't happened?
Yeah, of course.
Because this just doesn't make sense to me.